Yes, right.
You said like, so young people have lots of anxiety and doubt, and you get married at such a young age. How would you go about knowing that that person is best for you?
You don't know, that's why we have something called divorce. Now, Abu Bakr Siddiq had 4 wives, not at the same time. He divorced. Umar divorced. You'll be shocked and surprised. I'm not promoting divorce here. I'm not. I think divorce is a real problem, yeah? And we, as the Muslim community, we actually have a good record. Not in America, they have a bad record. The Muslim community in America their divorce rates are on par with the dominant population. We don't want divorces, but this is not Catholicism. Obviously, some conceptions, new, revised, reformed conceptions of Catholicism allows divorce as well. But for the most part, they don't allow it divorce. In Judaism, Orthodox Judaism, the Hasidic sect and so on, they don't allow divorce except for the man. I mean, the woman can get divorced in Islam through a khula or a fasq, but she has to get something called the get in Judaism, which only the man can provide. For the most part, I know there are other strands of Judaism and so on, and that the Reformed and so on, that they don't have the system. I appreciate that. I'm saying that the Orthodox strand doesn't allow. We are not like that at all. There was a hadith of the Prophet, actually of a sahabiya, female companion. And she came to the Prophet. And she said, Lola makhifatullah. She was complaining about her husband. And she said, if it wasn't for the fear of Allah, labazaqtu fi wajhi. I would have spat in his face. Like I'm so repulsed from this guy. And so I would have even spat. So فَفَرَّقَ بَيْنَهُمَا. So he divorced them. Simple as that. If you don't know sometimes. You actually don't know sometimes. The best thing to be right before you get married is self-sufficient. And this goes for men and for women. Don't go into a marriage hoping that the other half is going to deliver you into a state of euphoria such that if they come out of your lives that you'll be completely depleted and heartbroken, because that will happen. And by the way, you may be heartbroken either way, because love is a real and very powerful emotion, probably the most powerful emotion. I personally think it's the most powerful one. And I can, if you like, I can give you some analogies as to why I think that's the case. For example, I'll give you a reason why. For example, if someone is, look at sexual desire. Yeah, sexual desire, we've all experienced it, except for the prepubescents among us. And even they, sorry to say, according to Freud, they would have gone through psychosexual stages of development or whatever, yeah? So, imagine if someone is at the height of their sexual desire. Sorry to say, they're being seduced by someone, or they're just ready to relieve themselves. Sorry to be very explicit. And then all of a sudden, whilst they're watching whatever they're watching or doing whatever they're doing, someone banged down the door and put a gun to that person's head. So they're watching something, this haram thing, and they're ready to relieve themselves. And as someone comes, knocks down the door, puts a gun to their head, in 1 second, I promise you, all of their lust will be gone. One solitary second. Maybe for the brother, a couple of more seconds, maybe 3 or 4. Very excited, brother. Eager to get married. No, but you see, 1 solitary second, 2 seconds, fine. Put a gun to someone's head, the height of sexual desire. Am I right, am I wrong? If someone put a gun to your head and said, you're not going to feel like that no more. What's going to be the pervading feeling that you're going to have? Fear. Fear trumps sexual desire. It destroys it. And by the way, fear destroys anger as well. I've seen it online, especially in the inner city, London. Oh, you know what I'm talking about. You don't have knife crime here. I'm not sure if you do. Do you have knife crime? I don't know, yeah? In the city of London, you have knife crime. So someone will come to somebody, yeah? Imagine you're in this position. Someone who's smaller than you, someone who you think is weaker than you. He comes to you and he pushes you in front of your friends. If you're a male or a female does that to a female. How are you going to feel? Feel very angry, yeah? You want to hit him back, don't you? Yeah, okay. Big man, yeah? Big woman. Okay, do it. And then all of a sudden that person brings out a knife. How are you going to feel? You're going to feel scared now. You were feeling so angry before, but in 2 or 3 seconds, what happens? Fear overtakes anger. So fear overtakes sexual desire. Fear overtakes anger. But fear doesn't always overtake love. Because if somebody brings out a knife or brings out a gun, and a mother has her daughter, she'll cover the daughter. Am I right? Except for some, obviously, you know, women that don't have the maternal instinct or something. We live in a bad age. Or a man that doesn't have his maternal instinct. But love can do that. You can actually cover the child. You've seen it. We've seen it in war zones. We've seen that kind of thing. So love beats what? Fear. Fear beats sexual desire. It goes to the semi-finals with anger. It beats anger, but it doesn't beat love all the time. It can do sometimes. It can do. But it's a close one. Now the reason why I brought this up, why did I bring this up? I was talking about, you were talking about growing up and desires and so on, yeah? The reason why I brought this up is to make you realize one of the things that is really, really important is to know your own emotional state. Some refer to it as emotional intelligence, like Goldman and so on. To know your own emotional state. And so, really and truly, and I was also mentioning attachment in love. Love is the most dangerous thing. It is the most dangerous. If you're in romantic love and it's taken away from you, what happens? You get grief, which is probably the worst human emotion known to man. It's the most painful one, probably. Because there's no averting it. Anxiety versus grief, grief wins, by the way. I mean, for the most part, if you cannot actually get rid of grief. That's why psychologists call it the grief cycle. So if you get rid of love after it's been given to you, then you've got grief. So that means you do have to be careful before you go into a marriage. You have to be very careful. Because if that love is removed from you, you'll be in grief for a long time. Having said that, so in order to mitigate that, you have to have strong self-sufficiency. That you don't define yourself based on your other half, basically. If you do that as much as possible, then you're mitigating the risk. But this is something you can't really avoid in the human condition. But in terms of marriage though, do what the Prophet ﷺ said, which is إِذْفَرْ بِذَاتِ الدِّينِ. That, you know, be successful with the religious one. Because at least if they have a frame of reference, if the person's a moral person, they're likely to operate in a certain manner. Not always, by the way. To be honest, not always. But at least you have a frame of reference. If there's dispute, we have like arbitration, constitution, we have something to go back to. So the first thing I said was be self-sufficient. Number two, realize how powerful love is, because it's the most powerful emotion of all. That such, if it's removed, you get grief. If you remove fear, you don't get grief. If you remove anger, you don't get grief. If you remove love, you get grief. And so, once you come in with that mentality of self-sufficiency, really it's tawakkul. This is reliance upon Allah. Then you're less likely to be hurt. But don't think this person, I'm going to be with them forever. I know that sounds really bad. Don't come and say, I'm going to be with you forever. Yeah, you can be with the person forever. But as a man or a woman, you've got to realize that that person can be taken away from you in a second. Or you can be taken away from them. That's the reality of love. And be prepared for that. It's a very troubling thing for people to prepare, but a very healthy thing to do.